Coming up next on MBL Tonight, we go over off-season winners and losers. We interview Kansas City Chiefs GM and owner BroccoBeef, and we wrap up with JYmovieguy of MBL Stats and Information, and we go over projections for the winners of the individual awards this year. So make sure you go ahead and grab a drink, take a seat. MBL Tonight is coming right at you. Welcome everybody to MBL Tonight. I'm your host, as always, Sonny Weaver. It's been a while since we've been on, so a lot of news to cover. Let's jump right in. Joining us first tonight is Spencer Murray of the MBL Blitz Podcast. Spencer's going to go ahead and tell us about his winners and losers. So Spencer, how about you go ahead and tell us about your winners first?
Well, I'm going to have to say the biggest winner I chose this offseason had to be the Tennessee Titans. Their draft was phenomenal. 3 starters off the bat. That middle linebacker in the late rounds was just insane. I know a lot of teams had their eyes on them, and Titans were the ones to swoop them up. They were a little weak in free agency in their pickups, but they got their defense situated, and I think that that's going to push them forward and to the top of the AFC South this season.
So the Titans win the draft, and obviously there's 2 parts to the offseason, one being free agency. Who do you have as a winner because of what kind of moves they made in free agency?
Well, really, I like Cincinnati. They made a lot of smart pickups. They filled a lot of spots, and they actually added to their depth. The offensive line pickup in Khalil was great. The Nick Fairley pickup to add to that already potent defensive line was phenomenal. So, I mean, they've added players, even in the undrafted free agents after the draft. They found some great players, and they're looking to stay there in the AFC North.
So obviously when there's winners, there's losers. So tell us, who do you have as a loser and why?
My number one loser, it was really hard to pick. There's a lot of teams that just kind of blew my mind when it came to the draft. Baltimore was a little off the rockers. Minnesota drafted pretty bad, but I'm going to have to go with Indianapolis. Their defense, yes, it was a big point. But you've got an aging Frank Gore. You've got some wide receivers that aren't proven yet. Andrew Luck's there. He's been ready to play. They finally got that offensive line ready to go, and he needs weapons that are going to produce. Yeah, and I think they needed Titus Roth or Howard Lockhart. Those 2 running backs were just absolute stars waiting to get the field, and they missed out big time.
So you've got winners, losers, and you've got a set of bubble teams. So these bubble teams are guys that didn't necessarily win, didn't necessarily lose. So that means there's some wild cards in there. Waiting to see what happens. What are some of those teams right now that you think could go either way depending on a certain X factor, something that happened in this offseason that could push them one way or another?
I'm going to have to go with New Orleans. They did draft a QB. Breeze still had a year left. He's always at a top talent level. He's always ready to stay at that elite status. So I think they had one more year, and this was the year to shore up on offense, try to get some of these younger guys in to replace some of these older guys, even on defense. And they pulled the trigger on the QB, which wasn't a bad thing. But like you said, we have to wait and see how it all pans out.
Spencer, I appreciate you guys coming on here tonight, telling us about your winners and losers. We'll check in with you another time.
Thank you.
As always, Spencer does a great job. Make sure you check him out at the MBL Blitz Podcast. So one of those teams mentioned in the winners section were the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to go ahead and bring on GM and owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, BroccoBeef. Now, Brocco, one thing that we noticed, Trey McIntyre was projected to be the number 1 overall pick by most mock drafts heading into the draft, but you guys ended up picking him there at 3. Was there any idea that you guys were actually going to have a chance to pick him at 3?
Well, we were hoping that he would fall. We had our eyes set on Mark Bullard. We made the switch to 4-3 over the offseason, so we were ready to shore up the defensive field from there. But once Bullard hit the first pick, our eyes lit up. We were waiting for this guy. We really didn't want to give Alex Smith another year. He's been playing poorly, taking a lot of hits, not getting rid of the ball fast enough. And that was also part of the O-line, which we fixed in the draft and over free agency. So we're really excited to get this young guy out there and see what he can get our offense doing.
So all reports coming out of camp is McIntyre is your guy. He's looked good in the preseason. What kind of attributes, what kind of intangibles does Trey McIntyre bring to this team that makes you think that as a rookie, this guy can lead you to the promised land and bring you to the playoffs?
Well, first off, his leadership. He's already got the first team offense out there following him, ready to go. In both the preseason games, he got a lot of action in the first two. He led the team down the field quickly, precisely, and it just went completely smooth. His arm strength is great. He knows how to make the smart reads and then take the time in the pocket. But he didn't hold the ball that long like Alex Smith did. And this kid is just ready to come out and have probably one of the best rookie years the NBL has seen.
So when you get a pick that early in the draft, there's a lot of expectations. Do you worry about any sort of slump here for a rookie that hasn't really seen this kind of competition before?
Well, given the superstar talent he has there in the offense with Travis Kelce and Jeremy Maclin, we were hoping that it wouldn't make him nervous and come in knowing he has talent around him so he wouldn't feel like he'd have to perform over what we expected of him. So the main thing was getting the O-line shored up, because you're going to get a rookie on his back throughout the year. He's not going to want to perform, and he's not going to feel confident. So that we got some younger guys up front, and so far we've had no issues.
Brocco, I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope that you and Trey McIntyre have a great season this year as they progress through MBL.
We sure hope so too, and thank you for having me.
Joining us now on the show is going to be JYmovieguy of MBL Stats and Information. Now, JY, you guys went ahead and you guys compiled some stats through the preseason, through some other techniques, and you guys have now projected the awards winners. So let's go ahead and start with the AFC. Tell me about who are some of the award winners for the AFC and how you kind of came to those conclusions.
All right, so I'll give you a little insight first on how I came up with the stats. Is I looked at the preseason stats, then I did a little average of their per play performance, took that times the 16 games, and then I also gave them a little bit of a boost for breakout games. So that's kind of how I got the yardage and maybe some of the touchdowns figured out. One of the surprising picks that you'll see is that my offensive player of the year and the offensive rookie of the year both come out of New England, and that's the quarterback Doring.
So there's a couple other interesting picks in there. Obviously, Doring's going to be a big kind of shocker for a lot of people, but let's go to the other side of the ball. Who do you think on the defensive side of the ball, as far as your picks go, maybe the next biggest shock to people?
Probably McLean, the middle linebacker out of the Chargers. He actually had one of the best per play averages for performance. So we're talking tackles, interceptions, tackles behind the line of scrimmage. He was straight up killing it in the preseason, and I think he's going to take a lot of people kind of by storm. And you're also going to see the D lineman of the year that I picked out is also from San Diego, Kyle Emanuel from the University of North Dakota. So I expect big things out of the Chargers defense.
Now, of course, those are going to be a fun race to watch. Let's go ahead and switch over to the NFC. Now, the NFC, obviously you have reigning MVP Matthew Stafford, but who else are some guys to watch out for in the NFC?
One of the big guys that I am hoping is going to have a good year, and that's going to be the rookie quarterback. I think his name's Jerry Woodward from the 49ers. I think he's going to have a breakout year. I don't think it's going to be like super amazing, but I think he's going to surprise a lot of people kind of sneaking up towards the end of the year. And then I picked Aaron Donald for the defensive player of the year. The guy killed it in preseason. He had a whole bunch of sacks and tackles for a loss, but he's also not my top-rated defensive lineman, and that goes to Sharif Floyd in Minnesota.
So on the offensive side of the ball, do you think there's anybody that can truly challenge Matthew Stafford as the offensive player or MVP on the NFC side?
It's going to be tough. So I went through and I did some projected stats for Matt Stafford, and he is looking to have another year where he could possibly break the MBL season record for yardage. I had him at about 4,352, and that wasn't factoring in, Bomber's big game capability. And he's got a rookie wide receiver that I think is going to shock a lot of people.
A lot of great information there, JY. We'll make sure to check in with you guys during the season, see how those predictions are coming around. Well, that's all the time we have left for tonight here on MBL Tonight. Make sure you follow along on Twitter at MBL Network. We got a lot of great content coming to you guys, more than just MBL Tonight podcast and different things for you guys to check out. So make sure you do follow along there. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I've been Sonny Weaver. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.